Good afternoon. It is 3 p.m. and I'll call to order the Board of Directors regular meeting agenda for Monday, December 16th, 2024. If you'd please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Director Martin, would you like to lead us?
Sure. Place your hand over your heart and salute our nation's flag and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And our agenda today is a little different. We're going to be doing a swearing in for the three board members. They'll be starting a new 4-year term. So I believe we're going down.
So please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I,
Do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California
the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
I will bear true faith and allegiance
I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
the Constitution of the State of California,
and I will take this obligation freely
and I will take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
that I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now that that's done, may I have a roll call, please?
Director Meyerhoffen,
Here.
Director Duff,
Present.
Director Martin,
Present.
Vice President Griffith,
Present.
President Sewell.
Here.
Thank you. We have quorum.
Thank you. And seeing that all 5 directors are present, we will skip item 5. Item 6, rules of procedure. Counselor?
Yes, according to the rules of procedure adopted by the Board of Directors, all noticed meetings are conducted using Rosenberg's Rules of Order as a procedural guideline. Directors should refrain from responding directly to public comments at meetings of the board. The board president presides at all meetings and decides all points of order and procedure during meetings. The president is responsible for the maintenance of order and decorum at all board meetings. No person should be allowed to speak who has not first been recognized by the president. No member of the board should speak more than once upon any one subject until every other member of the board wishing to speak on that subject shall have been given an opportunity to speak. No board member shall interfere with the orderly progress of a board meeting, and the board president regulates the amount of time to be dedicated to a particular agenda item.
Thank you. Item 7, public input. This is the opportunity for members of the public to address the board on matters within the board's jurisdiction. Please limit comments to 3 minutes or less. State law prohibits the board from discussing or taking action on any item not listed on the agenda. Do we have any members of the public wishing to address the board?
President Sewell, we do not.
And I don't believe we have any here in person. So we will move on to, I think, the item of the day, our 2025 MSWD Conservation and Groundwater Protection Calendar Contest winners. Assistant General Manager, Mary?
Thank you. Good afternoon, President Sewell, members of the board. Today, I have the distinct pleasure to introduce our three finalists from the 2025 Conservation and Groundwater Protection Drawing Contest. This year, we had more than 50 entries into the contest, and just like last year, we had some very, very talented artists. In third place today, we have Fabiola, who is a senior at Desert Hot Springs High School. Don't make her hold that. Fabiola is a senior at Desert Hot Springs High School. She grew up here in Desert Hot Springs and plans to go to college after graduation to study biomedical or engineering or mechanical engineering. Most recently, she participated in the MSWD Fall Internship Program. In second place, we have Luna. She is a seventh grader at Painted Hills Middle School. According to her father, she's smart and energetic, and she loves to draw, play volleyball, and is a big sister. And in first place, we have Gerardo Silva, who is a senior at Desert Hot Springs High School. He is also a senior at Desert Hot Springs High School, and he entered the contest because he thought it would be a fun thing to do, and he loves to draw. And those are your three contest winners. Thank you.
And April, you can get those pictures to the parents and everyone. Great. Okay. Well, congratulations to you three, and thank you for participating. I really like how each of you kind of has your own unique style, and all just great job. Any comments from the board?
Keep up the good art, friends.
And for the two seniors, good luck on your next steps, wherever you might be heading.
I was a art history major in college, and I come to really appreciate the work, and you guys did every bit as good as any entries I've seen in college at the college level. So congratulations.
Well, thank you all, and you're more than welcome to stick around for another hour or two for our meeting. But if you'd like to
It's exciting. It's
sneak
exciting.
out before that, feel free. And we'll move on to item 9, Government Finance Offers Association Award Presentation.
Thank you, President Sewell. I am proud to announce that MSWD has received 2 prestigious awards from the Government Finance Officers Association, recognizing our commitment to excellence in finance, financial management, and transparency. The first award is the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award. This recognition reflects the district's dedication to meeting the highest principles of governmental budgeting. To qualify, MSWD's budget is evaluated against nationally recognized guidelines, ensuring that it serves effectively as a policy document, a financial plan, operations guide, and communications device. The budget document had been rated proficient in all 4 categories and meet 14 mandatory criteria. With over 1,700 participants in the program, MSWD's achievement sets an example for other governments across the United States. This is the second time MSWD has received this award. The second award, also from the GFOA, is a Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. MSWD earned this award in its annual comprehensive financial report for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023. The report was assessed by an impartial panel and praised for its adherence to high standards, including the spirit of full disclosure. This ensures the financial story is communicated clearly, encouraging engagement from various user groups. This certificate is the highest form of recognition in government accounting and financial reporting, underscoring MSWD's accomplishment and management excellence. These awards demonstrate MSWD's leadership in financial governance, transparency, and accountability, serving as a model for other public entities. Today, to accept these awards, our Director of Finance, Arturo Ceja, and his team. Arturo?
Stand on our tiptoes.
On a personal note, I would like to thank everyone in the accounting team. It's fantastic. I remember when I first got here, I think the document was 29 pages and now it's up over 400. So thank you so much for everything you guys do. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you very much. The board, we recognize all your hard work, and it makes it easier for us, but I hope it makes it easier for you all as well. And just keep up the great work. Thank you. Moving on to employee recognition, human resources report, General Manager.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, President Sewell. This month, our contracts analyst, Amanda Lucas, is celebrating 8 years with the district, and Andy Granette is the interim chief plant operator, received his wastewater treatment plant operator grade 5 certification. As we've always talked about, we celebrate the 5, 10, and things of that nature. So Amanda just got 8 years, so we're just recognizing her. But more specifically, the grade 5 examination that Andy passed covers topics such as safety practices, hazards encountered during operations, sampling and analysis of wastewater constituents, and operation and maintenance procedures, and primary and secondary treatment processes. Very challenging test, and is a testament to Andy's dedication to his profession and the customers we serve. Andy?
Good afternoon, President Sewell, members of the board, General Manager Racy. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's not an easy test to pass, but I really appreciate what the district does. So the district actually does certification pay for most of its field staff, that we go out and get better certification for us. So what this does for us is it promotes from within, getting people ready to go for the next step. And though we may never need a grade 5 operator, it kind of helps us out in the long run. If anything ever was to happen, wastewater, any kind of technology, new rules, whatever would happen, we're ready for it. So basically, at least for 26 years. It's counting though. So it's nice that the district does this for us. And like I said, it's an incentive for us, but it's incentive for growth, and it also makes us compete in market for us too. So once again, I appreciate it, and thank you all. So appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Andy, and congratulations. And I think I could say we're all excited to see you flip the switch on the new plant and get that up and going. Right. Action items. Item 11, Resolution 2024-29, updating and amending Administrative Code Title 3, Personnel. It is recommended that the board adopt Resolution 2024-29, updating and amending Title 3, Personnel of the District's Administrative Code. General Manager.
Thank you, President Sewell. Our Human Resources Manager, Oriana Harford, would be taking this item. Oriana?
Thank you. Good afternoon, President Sewell and members of the board. The changes to the personnel rules are noted in Exhibit A. There are no additional updates to this exhibit since the last study session, but please let me know if there are any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from the board? Director Duff? Vice President? Director Martin?
No.
Director Myerhoffen? And I have nothing further, so thank you, Oriana. And again, thank you to Rob. He came in last week to help us if needed, but I think all the changes are very straightforward, and thank you for the hard work on that. Do we have any members of the public wishing to address the board on item 11?
President Sewell, we do not.
Okay, and with that, we're open for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Myerhoffen,
Yes.
Director Duff,
Aye.
Director Martin,
Yes.
Vice President Griffith.
Aye.
President Sewell.
Yes,
Thank you. Motion passes.
thank you. Item 12, board acceptance of cost proposal for access control system of the Nancy Wright Regional Wastewater Reclamation Facility. It is recommended that the general manager be authorized to execute a contract with HCI Systems Incorporated for access control systems incorporated in the amount of $89,581 for the Nancy Wright Regional Water Reclamation Facility and authorize the general manager to do all things necessary to complete the project. General manager?
Thank you, President Sewell. We did discuss this item last Monday. Eric Weck, our engineering manager, is available to answer any additional questions.
Any questions, Director Martin?
Nope.
Director Myerhoffen? Director Duff? Vice President?
No, but I'll make a motion.
Okay, and I'll make a second. And with that, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Myerhoffen,
Yes.
Director Duff,
Aye.
Director Martin,
Yes.
Vice President Griffith.
Aye.
President Sewell.
Yes,
Thank you. Motion passes.
thank you. Item 13, approve change order number 1 with L.O. Lynch Quality Wells and Pumps Incorporated for on-call well and booster maintenance and repair services. It is recommended that the general manager be authorized to approve change order number 1 with L.O. Lynch Quality Wells and Pumps for the on-call well and booster maintenance and repair services contract. The change order would increase the contract amount by $355,990 from $150,000 to a not to exceed amount of $505,990 and authorize the general manager to do all things necessary to complete the project. General manager?
Thank you, President Sewell. We did provide a presentation on this item last Monday. As you recall, this is for well 35 to do some pump testing and some work on that particular well. That well has never been brought into service. It was drilled back in the 2000 era as part of the Skyborn project, and this cost is being reimbursed back to the district at the developer's cost. Answer any questions if there are any.
Director Duff?
No.
Vice President? Director Martin?
No.
Director Myerhoffen?
Once again, no cost to the district for this.
Correct. It's still part of the original agreement that we had with Skyborn to get 2 wells for the lower elevation, and they have deposited that check, gosh, I want to say almost 18 months ago.
Thank you.
And I have nothing further. Do we have any members of the public wishing to speak on item 13?
President Sewell, we do not.
With that, do we have a motion for the item?
I will so move.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Myerhoffen,
Yes.
Director Duff,
Aye.
Director Martin,
Yes.
Vice President Griffith.
Aye.
President Sewell.
Yes,
Thank you. Motion passes.
thank you. Item 14, award of contract agreement with MDN Water Management Services Incorporated for administrative and water management services. It is recommended to authorize the general manager to enter into a contract agreement with MDN Water Management Services for administrative and water management services for 1 year, starting January 1st, 2025, and ending December 31st, 2025. General Manager?
Thank you, President Sewell. This item was discussed in our last meeting last Monday. Just as a Just to reiterate, this contract is to help us with administrative and water management services. Also specifically, it helped us get the 2 awards that we talked about earlier from the Government Finance Officers Association. This person would, for the most part, report directly to Arturo, myself, and Marion, and all 3 of us are here and available for any questions regarding the contract.
Any questions, Director Martin?
No.
Director Myhoff? Director Duff? Vice President? And I have nothing further. I'll just say that they're very familiar with our district as they've already done quite a bit of work for us. And I think we can all agree that their work is a high quality, and I look forward to having them work for us. So, do we have any members of the public wishing to speak on item 14?
President Sewell, we do not.
Thank you. And with that, do we have a motion for the item?
I'll move.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Meyerhoffen,
Yes.
Director Duff,
Aye.
Director Martin,
Yes.
Vice President Griffith.
Aye.
President Sewell.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 15, annual report of capacity fees and related capital expenditures. It is recommended that the Board of Directors accept the annual report of capacity fees and related expenditures as submitted. General Manager.
Thank you, President Sewell. Arturo would like to give a presentation regarding this item. Arturo, our Director of Finance.
Thank you, General Manager Macy, President Sewell, and members of the board. More than a presentation is just a follow-up from Monday of the numbers that we did present. I did reach out to our rate person company, Raftelis, to include this. It was not included in the original project. It is now being included. One of the constraints that we're going to have, which is going to be taking a little bit longer and why we would want to separate it from the regular review, is that it does need an engineer's report to show those projects that do add capacity to the system, as opposed to any that just are a general project for a particular vendor or a particular project. And so it's going to take us a little bit longer, but it is back on the radar, and it is going to be included as part of the next time we bring you back those rates and reviews for the capacity fees, because it is very important, especially for development, as we know it's coming, and there's a lot more projects being discussed at the city.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Director Duff?
I just want to thank you for bringing this and for the follow-up on that. Do we have, just since you brought it up, do we have an estimate on our initial findings from the rate study that's going on?
We are looking at everything still. There's not a particular information that we're reviewing.
Okay.
Based on the financials, I can tell you that we are under in terms of most of our fees. However, that is to be reviewed in terms of where we can make changes. However, we are looking at everything for our revenues and all of the projected expenses coming up. But yeah, we're still reviewing that. The main reason it's been delayed is some of the major projects that we have to still look and are still going on. Chromium 6 going to be discussed later today. All of those things that are still unknown that we want to make sure we get more updated information before we can finalize it.
Perfect. Thank you. And thanks to Raftelis and the entire team that's working so hard on this. Thank you.
Vice President? Director Martin?
Nothing.
Director Martin? Thank you, Arturo. And do we have any members of the public wishing to speak on item 15?
President Sewell, we do not.
And with that, do we have a motion for the item?
So move.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Meyerhoffen,
Yes.
Director Duff,
Aye.
Director Martin,
Yes.
Vice President Griffith.
Aye.
President Sewell.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 16, MSWD Legislative Platform for 2025-26. It is recommended that the board acknowledge receipt of the legislative platform for 2025-26. General Manager.
Yeah, thank you, President Sewell. We did discuss this at our study session last Monday. Assistant General Manager Marion Champion is here to answer any questions you may have about this item.
Do we have any questions or comments, Director Martin?
No.
Director Myhoff? Director Duff?
Just great work. Glad to see us pushing these issues and being able to divulge to the public as well as other legislative entities our plan and our priorities, I think is very important. So thank you for doing this.
Vice President?
Kind of want to reiterate that, great job, and actually, especially as we move forward with some of the things that we are encountering and going to have to face, and I did share the honor of being on a meeting with you all last week regarding water theft. Happy to see this, so.
And I'll just say thank you as well for all the work. I do like the idea that it's now a 2-year plan, I guess, to align better with the representatives and everyone that we have either in Sacramento or DC. So thank you again for the hard work. Any comments from the public for item 16?
No.
Thank you. With that, do we have a motion for the item?
So moved.
Rock, paper, scissors? We have a motion by Director Martin and a second by Director Dove.
Thank you.
With that, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Meyerhoffen,
Yes.
Director Duff,
Aye.
Director Martin,
Yes.
Vice President Griffith.
Aye.
President Sewell.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 17, Public Relations Committee Report and Recommendation for Action. It is recommended to consider the recommendation from the Public Relations Committee and deny any further action or billing adjustments for 66626 12th Street, Caroline Ortel. And our chairperson of the Public Relations Committee is our Vice President, Griffith. Would you like to give a report out on our meeting?
Happy to. So we did have a meeting, God, I forget the day already. Last week, we did have a meeting to review everything. It is in the report as far as what was done and what we, let me start over. Okay. So we did have a meeting. Ms. Ortel was not able to attend in person, and she actually did not attend the entire meeting. If you read the report, that her phone, she said her phone was going to die, and it did. Was not able to ask her all of the questions that I wanted to ask. However, I did ask and ascertain some answers. The reality is that we did refund $185 in fees, which was tier fees. We call it league adjustment. And she felt that was not good enough, but based on what we have done and what we can do, especially given Prop 218, I did read parts of Articles 12D, Section 6, property-related fees and charges, because I thought that was very, very important for her to understand, which is that the other ratepayers are not we're not able to charge other ratepayers for the water that she uses. Therefore, we denied her appeal to make any other adjustments, and our recommendation is that the board support that recommendation.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from the board? Director Martin? Director Meyerhoffen?
I read what took place, and I think that the district's been very fair with her. And absolutely right. There's apparently that our staff went on the property and saw a big water leak in the backyard. So why wasn't that taken care of earlier? Beyond me. Thank you.
Director Duff?
I think that the report speaks for itself, and we've had this happen in the past. Proposition 218 is very specific, and our rules and regulations are very clear in that, again, to reiterate, Vice President Griffith, none of our ratepayers can be billed or charged for usage of another entity, which is why it is so important for us to maintain all of these regulations and go through all of these codes and have these meetings on a regular basis so we can make sure that everything stays up to date. So yeah, I would like to make a motion to support the Vice President's recommendation, and
we have a motion. We have a motion and a second. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Meyerhoffen,
Yes.
Director Duff,
aye.
Director Martin,
Yes.
Vice President Griffith.
Aye.
President Sewell.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
And I'm sorry, just to double check, did any members of the public wish to speak on that item?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 18, election of MSWD board officers for 2025. It is recommended that a president and vice president be nominated and elected for the 2025 year. And Dory, you'll be handling this item?
Yes, sir, I will. So I just want to clarify before we get started that none of these nominations require a second, but they do require that the candidate accept the nomination. So I will make a call for nominations of board president for the term ending December 31st, 2025.
I would like to nominate Ivan Sewell. I, I know that we had discussed previously not necessarily being fans of an automatic 2 years, but I think he's done a good job. And given what we've got coming up, I think he'll do another good job for the year.
Excellent. President Sewell, do you accept this nomination?
Yes.
Are there any other nominations for president? Seeing none, we'll move for a vote. Roll call vote, Director Meyerhoffen,
Yes.
Director Martin,
Yes.
Director Duff,
Aye.
Vice President Griffith,
Aye.
President Sewell.
Yes.
Congratulations with a vote of 5-0. You are the president for the term ending December 31st, 2025.
Thank you.
We will now make a call for nominations for vice president for the term ending December 31st, 2025.
I would like to nominate Robert Griffith. I think he's done a great job as our vice president this year, been a big support to me, and I'd hope it can continue for another year.
Excellent. Vice President Griffith, do you accept this nomination?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Are there any other nominations for vice president? Seeing none, we will move to a roll call vote. Director Meyerhoffen,
Yes.
Director Martin,
Yes.
Director Duff,
Aye.
President Sewell,
Yes.
and Vice President Griffith.
Aye.
With a vote of 5-0, you have been elected board vice president for the term ending December 31st, 2025. Congratulations to you both.
Thank you. And and while we're on this item, I'll just say a big thank you to my fellow board members. I think this year we've made a lot of huge steps forward, and it's really the work of all of you. So thank you. Moving on to discussion items. Item 19, Critical Services Center and Administrative Building Update. General Manager.
Thank you, President Sewell. Just a quick update. As you know, we were going through the plan review process with the city. I understand that Ronald Clark received the comments from the city late last week, and so they're going through those comments. And if there are any issues or anything like that, we will let the board know. That completes my update for the CSC.
Okay. Did we have any comments or questions from the board, Director Martin? No. Director Meyerhoffen? Director Duff? Vice President? No. Okay. Item 20, Groundwater Protection Program Update. General Manager.
Thank you, President Sewell. As you know, we are still waiting for SCE to come out and hold the pole for the easement. So what we believe that meeting occurred last week. So they're on a 4 to 6 week window to go out and hold that pole so we can then start construction. So we're hoping that the end of January, we'll be able to start the plan up officially. But there were some other questions that were brought up in our study session, and I'd like to address those with a short presentation. So we spoke in November, we talked about getting the contract amendment signed. In that amendment was a time extension and other cleanup items, other known information for like phases 1 and 3. One of the things I want to highlight as it relates to where are we at in our grant funding and how much do we have left over, knowing that we have some pending change orders that we'll bring to the board in January. I wanted to talk about the budgeted amounts. You'll see almost $41 million for phase 1, which is the Nancy Wright facility. Phase 3, which is the conveyance line, is 6.5, and then phase 2, which is the sewer to septic and M2, is roughly just over $10 million. Included within the $68 million grant is also a contingency of $5.7 million, as well as soft costs, which is usually the engineering, construction, maintenance, and things or construction management and inspection services. So that rounds out the $68 million, if you will. Next slide, please. So where are we at right now? So trying to keep the numbers consistent with what you just saw. 40 million, 10 million, and so forth. Every number we've ever shown you was specific to whether it was phase one or phase two. We did not break out the soft costs or the contingencies. So that's why you see zeros across there and you see the bigger numbers at the top. That's consistent to what we had shown you in the past. So I just want to be consistent with that, even though the grant has it broken down differently. These are the amounts requested by MSWD. The first number, 46.3 million requested. That is 5 of the 6 disbursement requests, or excuse me, that is all 6 requests that we've put in. 5 of them have been reimbursed to us for a total of $42 million. There is a discrepancy of the 4 million. 2 of it is from prior that we're still working through with the state to get reimbursed. The other 2 million is actually the most current request of number 6. Future request, this is the number 2 is basically project completion and contract changes. We're negotiating with the contractor, both the contractor as well as our engineer that's managing the project for us. We expect that total cost to come in around $2.7 million. So for the, I guess we would consider it phase 1. The difference is just under $8 million. Again, that includes soft costs and contingency in that. So then the sewer to septic, we have still waiting to bid that project. We can't bid that project until we get the FBA for phase 3 approved. Going to the conveyance line, the amount funded is $6.5 million. We are waiting for that request once the FBA is approved, but we have everything ready to go for almost $6.8 million request. And then the future request to close the project out after the construction through the SCE property is completed of $700,000. You're looking at basically $1 million in difference between what was funded by the state by line item and what has been requested by MSWD. Obviously, they've been approving more than what is in those particular line items because they allow us to move the soft costs and contingency into the actual phase amounts. So when you look at the total project, if we are to stay on the anticipated cost for M2, right now there's a difference of over $2 million in what has been budgeted and what we've received from grant funding. So I think that answers the question that was looking at where do we stand with the grant funding. So as it stands right now, we have a difference of over $2 million. That may be, as you can see, what is actually funded and what is bid, and then the change orders and things of that nature or changes in field conditions may add more to M2. But we do have additional contingency to cover those costs. Is there any questions on this slide before I move on?
Director Dub?
Does it include the referenced change orders coming next month?
That $2.7 million number does include the change orders that are coming next month, both from the contractor and from our C&M team.
Thank you.
Vice President?
I see we're still worried about a borrowing now.
So, yes, the burrowing owl was part. Oh, is it still that way? No, sorry about that. But yes, the burrowing owl is still an issue. It is contributing to the change order requests that we're seeing for both the Nancy Wright facility and the conveyance line, and will also be included in a change order for M2.
Perhaps if we stop lending to it, it would reduce our costs.
Point well set, well taken. Can we change the slide, please?
Any questions on this slide? Director Martin, Meyerhoffen?
I don't think I could follow that.
Okay.
Cut and paste. Here's specifically the phase 1. Can we go to the next slide, please?
Can we get to a slide without errors?
Yes. The other question that was asked of the operational cost, how are we going to pay for the Nancy Wright facility once it comes online? The easiest way to look at the operational costs and where they're coming from the general fund. They're coming from the rates that are paid to us in just normal operations. So what you see here is you see the difference between 2025 and 2024. That's the easiest way to talk about what is the difference. When you look at the difference in salaries and benefits, you look at outside services, which includes sludge hauling and other things of that nature, chemicals. Basically, we have budgeted almost $270,000 to operate the right facility in this fiscal year. Next year, it will be a full year encumbered, so it'll be a little bit more, probably twice this, because we assumed half a year. But just wanting to talk about where the costs are coming from. It does come from our operations, and it's just part of our normal budget. Any questions?
Director Martin? No. Director Martin?
I see here the electric utilities, 591,000.
Mhm.
The Horton treatment plant's at what, 1.5 million for electric over there?
No. It's not this, what the numbers you see here, it includes the Horton facility. So let's say
No.
it's 490,000 for
It does-
last year.
I'm sorry.
This year, it's going to be close to 6 million for both. The number that you see typically in energy costs is for the entire system. It includes all of the wells. And obviously we have a lot more wells, a lot more usage, if you will, from the water side. This number also includes the credits that we get from our RESPC project, the 1 megawatt that we currently have. So this shows the deduction of that from an expense perspective.
So the Horton treatment plant is included here, is what you're saying?
Yes, the Horton. So in that $490,000 number, you see the Horton plant, you see Desert Crest, and you also see the Dos Palmas lift station. Those are the three major components of that electricity cost for our wastewater.
Things seem to change, all these numbers here over the last year or so, but okay.
But no, the 1.5 million that we've discussed in the past, that was for the entire system. It wasn't broken out specifically for the wastewater side.
I thought it was just for the Horton treatment plant.
No.
All right, thank you.
Director Duff? Vice President?
That concludes our report. Our update. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 21, hexavalent chromium compliance plan update. General Manager?
Thank you, President Sewell. We do have our Corolla Engineering, Chad Seidel, on the call to give a short presentation on where we are with our Chrome 6 compliance. Chad?
Hello, good afternoon. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Let me just put this on screen for you all. I'm glad to talk through this. Happy to talk about the California specific Chromium 6 MCL. Also glad to mark today as the 50th anniversary of the Safe Drinking Water Act in the United States, which I think we all can appreciate. It's helped accomplish some tremendous goals for public health protection and safe, affordable, and reliable water supply. So glad to partner with you and your community as you address hexavalent chromium compliance given the California MCL. So my name is Chad Seidel. I'm president of Corona Environmental Consulting. And our background, as I think I've shared with some of you before, with some new folks involved, always like to give a little bit heads up. So there is naturally occurring hexavalent chromium in the Coachella Valley, and it happens to be predominantly driven by serpentine rock in the subsurface of the groundwater supplies that you have, and there's variations of that concentration, the concentration of hexavalent chromium in your groundwater wells, depending upon where they're at and what strata they draw from. But you're not alone. There are many others across the state that have that. In fact, the map on the right is the one from about a decade ago when the first MCL was implemented. That MCL was since then updated, and the state of California has been updating more recent data with that. So you can see the more recent data as collected from the state water board here. And you'll just note again, you're not alone, particularly in your neighborhood. There are many other communities in and around the valley there that are dealing with how to best address hexavalent chromium at concentrations above the recently reestablished hexavalent chromium MCL. So a little bit of background about us. If you haven't heard me speak with you all before, Corona Environmental Consulting, we're a drinking water focused consulting firm, really recognized with respect to our expertise for hexavalent chromium. We've led the charge in implementing what were the first permitted treatment installations, whether they were regenerable or non-regenerable anion exchange, and then reduction, coagulation, filtration. Those locations there were with SoCal Creek Water District, California American Water, and then the city of Watsonville, or rather the city of Watsonville is following the lead of California Water Service with that RCF system. And this is a challenge across the state. We've been addressing this with all the clients listed there to the right. By no means is that a comprehensive list of everybody, but it certainly highlights the diversity of water systems that we've been addressing. Pleased to come alongside you and your staff to address these concerns going forward, and really just do everything it takes to communicate clearly to you and your customers about what are the questions, what are the challenges, what are the ways that we will address this best for you and the long-term future of this. Which brings us to the most recent details that are driving this. So in April, the California State Water Resources Control Board did approve finalizing the 10 microgram per liter hexavalent chromium MCL. And that regulation went into effect on October 1st of this year. And given that now finalized effective date of October 1st of 2024, we now know that water systems serving greater than 10,000 service connections have a compliance date of October 1st of 2026. Now, different than any other regulation finalized by the State Water Resources Control Board Division of Drinking Water is a contaminant-specific compliance schedule, which is a little different than what we've ever had before. And so this was in somewhat a response to water utilities' responses to say it is difficult for us to research, test, design, construct, and start up water treatment facilities to address newly regulated contaminant concerns. And so the board's response to that was, first, you have to start compliance monitoring within 6 months of the effective date. So that means March 31st of this coming year. And then, I even had a typo here too. I do not like those. I will correct that. The quarterly sampling has to start at the entry point to the distribution system. So in your wells, that means you have to take those samples to know what's at the treatment plant, or rather the well source. And then one key thing to note, this is not a single result average contaminant, maximum contaminant level. It's kind of like other contaminants that have quarterly samples collected and averaging of those over a year. So we use the running annual average of those quarterly samples. And in your water supplies case, that is a important detail to note because there can be some variability over time, and that the concentrations of hexavalent chromium in your water supplies are actually quite close to the 10 microgram per liter limit, above and below. So here I wanted to get to the new requirements associated with the hexavalent chromium MCL that are different than what we've experienced before with prior MCLs. So the first thing is you have to take your samples, starting here with these the first 6 months of the effective date. Once you exceed the MCL by any means of calculating a running annual average, so if you had a hexavalent chromium concentration exceed 40 micrograms per liter, if you were to average that over 4 quarterly results, even if the rest were 0, you would exceed it. You would exceed that in the first quarter. Now, your concentrations are not that high, but they do require, once the MCL is exceeded in whichever number of samples it might take, within 30 days of that, you have to issue Tier 2 public notice to your customers, describing those MCL exceedances occurring prior to the compliance date. Now, this may sound complicated and nuanced, and unfortunately it is. Although those concentrations may exceed the MCL, you're not out of compliance until after the October 1 of 2026 deadline. So all water systems in California that have hexavalent chromium above the newly reestablished MCL, we're all doing our best to try to clearly communicate what that means. So most of the time when we see this communicated to customers, headlines similar to something like, water quality regulations have changed, our water quality has not. Here is what we're doing to work to address those new requirements and the approach and schedule that we're on to do that. So we'll be collaborating with you to help address that. Now, within 90 days after exceeding the MCL, albeit not out of compliance, you have to submit a compliance plan to the Division of Drinking Water. And then in the following year, you have to include that information in the Consumer Confidence Report. And then before implementing new or modified treatment, obviously you have to have the permitting process, including an operations plan to the Division of Drinking Water. And feel free to ask questions as you wish. Just a different way to highlight what this looks like on a timeline. So we hit the effective date, going to begin quarterly monitoring. Depending upon the concentration of hexavalent chromium in any given water supply, the initial triggering of an MCL in that water supply may happen as soon as this first quarter of 25, second quarter of 25, third quarter or fourth quarter. So if you have a concentration that's as low as 10 to 13.4, it might not be until that fourth result is collected and averaged to lead to a running annual average result that's exceeding the 10 microgram per liter MCL. Now, it's also important to note that it is 10 micrograms per liter, not 10.0. So an average of 10.4 is in compliance, an average of 10.5 is out of compliance. And that, again, will play out in terms of the water supply conditions that you have in your groundwater sources. Shortly after those triggers, you'd have public notice, the compliance plan, and then the following year would be the consumer confidence report. And so we do expect those things will come in the next year. And the larger looming detail is the compliance deadline in 2026, which by all accounts will be difficult to achieve if any treatment modifications are necessary. However, our interim plan of addressing how to continue to supply water with the lowest concentrations of chromium based upon what's available does have some opportunity to achieve that as well. And that's what I'm glad to speak to more about that. For background, I'll leave this in the slides to be shared with you all, but this is the type of information that is required to be included in the final aspects of what the state regulation requires. We'll work with how this gets communicated in the different means that come out of those triggers I described before. Now, I want to give everybody a little bit of background. So we were engaged to help develop a roadmap. The chromium-6 MCL was likely to be finalized, and in advance of that, we were engaged to help assess all the information associated with water supplies, water production, operations, what are the water quality conditions, really to understand which wells are likely to be implicated. And so we used the historical chromium-6 concentration data that was shared with us, and then binned water supplies, these different groundwater wells, in different ways to understand which ones were at most risk for violating the new 10 microgram per liter MCL. And you can see from these, there are many that are quite near and very close, in fact, just above the 10 microgram per liter red dashed line in those cases. Now, there's some others, 27, 29, 37 in particular, that are more so reliably above the MCL. And there's some others, like 34, for example, even 28, that are considerably lower. Now, given the historical nature of those results and the fact that we know how these concentrations can change over time, even based on the laboratory analysis, but more so based upon subsurface hydrologic conditions, we did some additional targeted sampling to help better understand, under current operational conditions, might we be able to leverage some of the lower chrom-6 concentration, higher quality water supplies differently to meet compliance without having to install treatment as widely as might be necessary. Now, the key thing that we found here is, for the most part, those historical water quality conditions are still consistent in almost all of those wells. The one that I'll point out here is well 31, and well 31 is at the same site as well 27, and the historical results showed us that it varied in its concentrations of chromium-6, and we suspected it has to do with the hydrologic connections between those two wells, and depending upon how they're operating. And so the backstory behind these data are the extent to which those wells are operating independent or at the same time as one another. But we did further confirm that those two really do fall into the category of needing to be addressed to offset the non-compliance concerns. So here's how they fall out in terms of tier, and this is what ended up in the roadmap. So we've classified wells that were included in the study as part of 1, 2, 3, or 4, where the top tier are any of those that are clearly with an average chromium-6 concentration greater than 10.5, and those 3 listed there fall into that category. There are 2 that fall into the category of an average chromium-6 concentration less than 10.5. So based on historical results, in compliance, but quite close, even having had some concentrations historically above that number. And so our recommendation is to be addressing those clearly. And our general recommendation is always best practice is to address any water supplies that have concerns for a given MCL to address them within 20% margin of safety of the limit. And so in that case, we would suggest addressing tier 3 wells, including 22, 32, and 33, where their average concentrations are between the MCL condition and 8 micrograms per liter. Now, keep in mind, one of the key things that will influence the district's ability to maintain compliance going forward are wells that have been offline and or wells that are to come online in the near future, and their ability to provide sufficient water supply, not just generally to the water system, but to those areas of the water system where that supply is needed to be turned off because of these wells that have higher concentrations. And that's been most of the focus since the roadmap exercise was completed, is working through those things. And so just take a big step back here. Here's a great system map for the existing production system, which we have overlaid with the colors, the same colors of those tiers that we talked about before. And you'll note that the combined site for wells 27 and 31 at the same site there on the south west portion, as well as wells 29 and 37, more in the central area there, are the ones that are most impacted, 24 just north of there. However, there are others that are a little bit further out of that reach, and those ones that are in the yellow shading, in particular, as well as the others that are offline, like 30 that's noted up there to the north, are likely to be critical to be able to demonstrate if we can meet the district's water supply needs with those wells supplanting the red colored box wells. And that's a key focus now while we move in a parallel track to assess that operationally, while also assessing, well, what would it take to deal with directly treating those concentrations in those wells that might need it to be able to use them continued into the future. So the response by the district since that roadmap was put together was additional sampling. I showed some of that view already, and we've got some continued dialogue about additional details to be sampled to inform other treatment aspects. That roadmap that we provided the end of October helped provide that interim plan to shut off wells with higher chromium-6 and deliver water from other wells with lower concentrations to supplant that water supply. And obviously the district's working towards developing and implementing the use of the new wells, which we think will be a terrific step forward too. So what's in progress is really the next steps plan for those wells that may require treatment. And the need for treatment is dependent upon the ability for us to be able to move water around and supply it reliably from those other sources that meet the compliance expectation. But for those wells that are implicated with higher chromium-6 concentrations, if they are to be used going forward, we wouldn't want to strand those assets, specifically wells 27, 31, 29, and 37. The recommended treatment process is RCF, which is short for reduction, coagulation, filtration. Many other water systems across the state are moving forward to implement that process. The water quality of the district's wells is it really doesn't afford treatment with many, if not any other treatment processes. It is quite appropriate for RCF and not good for other treatment processes. So it wasn't a very close race in terms of assessing different treatment options. And I'm glad to talk more about that as you wish. I did want to show a picture of what that might look like. That bottom right-hand photo there is the California Water Service Los Lomas Well 305 RCF treatment system, which actually, when it was first installed, didn't have those 3 vessels to the right-hand side of the photo. It just had the other vessels in the well and the other treatment equipment behind it to treat iron and manganese. Very simple, frankly, off-the-shelf groundwater filtration treatment system. And when we learned that well, in addition to having iron and manganese to be filtered, had chromium to be filtered, we really had to test the science to figure out how to do that, and have since published on that subject, demonstrating that this actually is one of the most efficient, simple ways to deal with it. The treatment process is you take water from the well, you add ferrous iron, mix it, let it reduce the chromium-6 to chromium-3, which forms particles, and then you can further oxidize the iron with some chlorine and then filter out all those particles. Now, once those particles are removed on the filter, you have to clean the filter occasionally, and so that backwashing process, then that backwash water can either go, as shown in this photo, to a backwash tank that meters it to a sewer. And in your case, operating the sewer system, our recommendation is that you assess how to be able to accommodate that backwash water at your sewer system. Others, and you may also, for some reason, in our next evaluation, as we further press into the details of this, may want to consider capturing that water, recycling it, and then disposing of the solids more directly at the treatment plant. The question is, do you want to do that at the water treatment plant or at the wastewater plant? And that's really part of the next step. So, high-level overview, I went through that quick, but I know it's a lot of detail. But this is a key part of the district's efforts for the years to come, and it has been for quite some time. You know, the previous MCL, established a decade ago, was short-lived, challenged legally, and rescinded, but it's now back, and now we have to follow the process to be able to best address it. The silver lining to that start, stop, restart to the MCL is that we have really substantially improved upon the understanding of how best to treat and deal with hexavalent chromium, and also how to avoid treatment by using other water supplies effectively and best understanding the subsurface conditions. So that was the overview. Glad to answer questions. Want to keep you and your community apprised of this, and always glad to address any questions and concerns that come up. Thank you for your time.
Great. Thank you, Chad. Very informative. Do we have questions or comments, Director Martin?
Oh, I have a ton of them, but I'm not going to go into it. There's a lot of information there to digest, and I'm going to be reviewing the information, and I don't have anything specific on it.
And Chad, would you be able to email this that we could share with the board, your presentation?
Absolutely. Already have, although I do want to note the date 24 to 25 update that I will make readily and send that over to Marion right away.
Okay, thank you. Director Meyerhoffen?
Yes, and it is a lot of information, and I appreciate it. You know, about 2 years ago when I was first elected to this position, I started looking into chromium-6. Where does it come from? What's going on with it? Actually, serpentine rock, and it's all over California.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a question for you, but first I'd like to give you an explanation of why I'm asking the question. I noticed you had a rock there, a stone that was green with chromium-6 and some quartz in it. I've also seen a stone that had blue chromium-6 quartz, and it was turning the quartz into a ruby. And I've also seen it with chromium-6 with brown with the quartz in it. So as you're explaining all that, I was also thinking that, well, how does this affect our level of chromium-6 in our wells? So I don't know if you'd agree with me or not, but we've had changes in the weather where we're getting more water in different locations. And as that water seeps down, goes through those new stones that haven't had a lot of water, I believe we're going to get more of that chromium-6. So this is something that we may see chromium-6. Correct me if I'm wrong, this is my question. Will we see chromium-6 overall continue to rise a little bit as time goes on?
That's a terrific question. I can tell you, well, with respect to the color, that one photo is just one version of it. The subsurface contents that include chromium can be both chromium 6 and chromium 3, as well as some elemental chromium, lots of different colors and shades of those things based upon their mineralogy. But your question is a great one in that we do observe changes in groundwater well chromium 6 concentrations over time for lots of reasons. And one of the reasons that we have seen to be a large factor for that, or a significant factor influencing chromium 6 concentrations in the wells, is drought and wet cycles. In fact, leading up to implementation of chromium 6 treatment with the original MCL back in the 2013, 14, 15 timeframe, several of the impacted wells in and around the Sacramento area, further west towards Dixon, for example, actually had declining hexavalent chromium concentrations over the decade leading up to that. Treatment was installed with that historical perspective in mind, but with a safety factor, understanding that concentrations could increase at some time. And I'm glad that was the case, because the subsequent wet seasons, not too long after that, did just what you hypothesized. Wet season leading to infiltration of what had previously been a more dry zone, Vados zone between the surface and the groundwater interface, led to an increase of hexavalent chromium in the groundwater wells when they were operating. We've seen this for chromium, we've seen it for arsenic, iron, manganese, different complicating factors in every groundwater well, but I do expect that there will be continued variability of chromium 6 concentrations in your groundwater wells for a number of reasons. That being just one of them. I think the other that has had a significant influence on some of your groundwater wells is the surface water recharge up gradient of some of yours. And so I didn't get into the details of those wells, but when you're planning for the need to comply with an MCL forever into the future and designing for treatment or other solutions that could be employed, you really do need to look on a long life cycle timeline. 20, 30 years is pretty typical. And if we can go further than that, we try. But I think, as you know, predicting what the water cycle will do in our communities in the next 20 years is pretty long to begin with. And we'll do our best to look beyond that.
Thank you very much for all your knowledge. I appreciate your answer.
Thank you. Director Duff, questions? Vice President?
I actually have a bunch, but only a couple for you. Because then I don't want to waste all your time, but I will hit you up on some of these. For RCF, what's the average cost per well for treatment? Just to install and then maybe on an annual basis?
It's a terrific question. It's not one that can be answered on a typical basis. I would say that's the key things that swing the cost are how much space you have available to implement, and if you have a easy connection to make to the sewer system. So note that our efforts to date have not yet put conceptual level costs together. That's expected in the coming effort. The roadmap was intended to point in the right direction, so we weren't wasting anybody's time on developing cost estimates across several options. Now that we know that RCF is the preferred option for those impacted well sites, that's what's coming next.
Okay. And then you talk about backwash to sewer discharge. That goes into the treatment plant, which our treatment plants use perk ponds. Does that not then contaminate the water underneath that?
So we spent a lot of time looking at the implications of water treatment plant backwash water from groundwater well sites going to local wastewater treatment plants, including those like yours with perk ponds. In the case of reduction coagulation filtration for chromium 6 treatment, it's very similar to coagulation filtration for arsenic treatment. Each of those processes use an iron chemical to begin with. RCF uses the ferrous reductant to reduce chromium 6 to chromium 3, and then the remaining is oxidized. So you end up having iron and chromium. The chromium in those particles is chromium 3, and it's particulate, and it stays in particulate to and through the wastewater process as we profile. So other communities that have investigated this and implemented it, I showed the photo of the Cal Water System, which discharges to their local sewer district not too far away. City of Watsonville, not too far away from there on the Monterey Bay coast, is also moving forward with RCF with backwash to the wastewater system that they own and operate. It does require some special attention, which is a part of the next effort, which is our first efforts were only drinking water focused. Next steps will assess the capacity of the wastewater treatment plant to accommodate the flow that would be required. And then the treatment performance and your specific wastewater treatment permit expectations. We've been doing the same with others in the valley, with like Valley Sand, for example, for some of the other groundwater well sites that may have this process go forward. Now, one last note. In the instance where the wastewater system would not be able to accommodate that backwash water waste, it doesn't negate RCF as the best alternative. It simply means then that the backwash water has to be managed at the water treatment plant, at the well site, rather than at the wastewater treatment plant. And instead of sending it to the wastewater plant, where it'd be handled in the ponds and the solids and the discharge will be dealt with there, you then put it into tanks that dewater, and you recycle the clarified water, and you dispose of the sludge to a landfill instead. It is more water efficient, but it's more costly, and so there's some key decisions to be made with respect to that detail in the coming weeks.
Okay, thank you.
Director Duff.
Before you go, Chad, just if you could you go back a little bit and just readdress, you mentioned the surface recharge ponds potentially having effect. Could you give a little more information on that?
Yes, since I don't have any slides to speak to that, I think we've shown and discussed some of this previously. But let's start with the surface water recharge up gradient of some of the district's groundwater wells is known to have low, almost no measurable hexavalent chromium concentrations. And so as the water is then recharged into the groundwater basin, and then that water ultimately is what's being drawn out of the district groundwater wells, it has the possibility of decreasing the chromium 6 concentrations. Not so much in terms of its own, but rather instead of drawing water that was just native groundwater that had a hexavalent chromium because of the subsurface geology, you're drawing water that was more recently recharged up gradient. That help answer that? We can follow up with a bit more clear detail on that, since I don't have materials in front of me to share right now.
Yeah, that's perfect for now. We'll definitely dive into that later. Thank you.
Yep.
And I just have a little bit, the RCF, I think I'll just wait until we get a little deeper with more questions on that. But as far as the compliance 2026 date, once we hit that date, is the testing still that running average quarterly, or does that change to?
It is. So for wells that have hexavalent chromium above half of the MCL, you'll continue to monitor quarterly. For wells that have less than half of the MCL, or less than 5, you can go to a reduced monitoring schedule, and you have some supplies that will be able to go to a reduced monitoring schedule. And then treatment facilities will require at least quarterly compliance sampling and likely monthly operational sampling to meet the permit expectations. That's still somewhat to be determined as DDW rolls out their view and implementation of the new Chrome 6 MCL.
And then just say we have a well that we've run for 2 quarters and we're seeing that the levels are higher than we expected, and we shut it off. How does that work exactly with compliance? Say if we were to bring it on again the following year, does that quarterly results, how does that work?
That's a great question. So there's really two aspects to that. The first is leading up to the point at which the MCL is now implemented, it is possible to stop using the well and not exceed the MCL, and therefore then just leave the well off and in standby and not violate the MCL. If you then bring the well on again, you would be required to reinitiate quarterly sampling. And our experience is that DDW will expect those results then to likely serve as surrogates for, surrogate's not the right word. It will prompt a question around, is it in compliance or not? So what happened with the first MCL is that wells that were above the standard, or even just really close to being above the standard, many water utilities put those wells on standby and chose to leave them on standby status instead of active status, knowing that they may need to use them to meet water supply expectations, but they didn't have an ability to implement treatment either immediately, or were still questioning if they would do so long term. So the language that the state law affords is that you can reactivate a standby well to an active well and use it for 5 days, 5 consecutive days, and no more than 15 total days in a calendar year without exceeding an MCL. And this is actually for any contaminant. It's not specific to hexavalent chromium. However, the consequences of doing that, while not violating the MCL, is that you still have to issue notice to your customers. Make sure my audio came back here. So you have to give notice to your customers, and then you also have to put that detail into your annual, soon to be biannual consumer confidence report. So there are some ways, like we are looking at best ways to utilize the wells that you have, meet compliance, clearly communicate to your customers, and generally just overall address the compliance objective and the costs of doing so.
Great. Well, thank you, Chad. I really appreciate it. Do we have anything further? Oh, Director Martin.
Yeah, in the future, we're going to be asked by members of the public and sometimes the press whether or not we're in violation of the standard set by the state of California. And there's no way that I'm going to be able to convey all of the information you provided. And I don't think that the press or the public would either understand or want that level of detail. The
Agreed.
initial issue is going to be, are we in compliance? How many of our wells are in compliance? And to those wells that are not in compliance, are we taking corrective measures to bring them into compliance in a very, very simple, straightforward manner without going through all of the technical jargon on there that is that the public isn't going to understand, and neither is the press for that matter. So,
point well taken. Absolutely agree with that. The versions of those communications used with the previous MCL still hold in this case. However, they're further complicated by the fact that this new MCL has this 2-year compliance schedule for systems of your size, 3 years for mid-size and 4 years for small systems. And my advice to utilities like yours is don't even think it's there. Expect that the monitoring results and the calculations that we make are what we have to say and what we're doing about it. And you are not alone in how that communication will be made to your customers. There are countless other water utilities that are putting together the materials to share the same for their community.
Well, thank you, Chad. Really great presentation. Do we have anything further from staff?
No, President.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to the, thank you. Consent agenda consists of items 22, approval of minutes, item 23, register of demands, item 24, 2025 Board of Directors meeting schedule, and item 25, board compensation for AWWA 2025 webinar subscription. Did anyone want to pull any of those items to discuss? Yep. And with that, do we have a motion to approve the consent?
Move.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Meyerhoffen,
Yes.
Director Duff,
Aye.
Director Martin,
Yes.
Vice President Griffith,
Aye.
President Sewell.
Yes,
Thank you. Motion passes.
thank you. Item 26, Director's Reports. Anyone like to go first? Director Martin?
On the 7th of November, attended the Desert Valley Builders Association's legislative meeting. It was a broad legislative briefing on national, state, and local issues. Also attended the California Special District Association fall meeting at the Coachella Valley Mosquito and Vector Control. Nothing more to report there. Interesting though. On the 12th, Desert Valley Builders Association, Southern California Edison, and Imperial Irrigation District on Power Talk. And it was a discussion of the power grid. There were 60 participants discussing issues impacting local government. On the 19th, Coachella Valley Economic Partnership Economic Summit was a very broad economic report on the entire Coachella Valley. On the 19th City Council meeting, honoring one of the highlights for me anyway was honoring Donna Wardeen, who is an amazing individual. She is a avid skydiver, and she has performed over 3,000 skydiving trips. She holds 30 world records, and she did they had a film of her jumping from a DC-9 passenger jet out the rear, which was the same jet that DB Cooper dove out of, and she went out of the rear of that plane and filmed it all the way down. I would never jump out of an airplane and that was perfect, functioning well, let alone for the fun of it. I don't. She is an amazing individual. And moving on to on the 20th, the Desert Valley Builders Association mixer at Rio del Sol. It's a new GHA housing development in Cathedral City. On the 22nd, the Desert Valley Builders Association golf tournament. It was an interesting luncheon at the conclusion of the tournament. On the 2nd of November, Historical Society meeting at the Rock House. And that was I always enjoy that on there. That's a very, very interesting location of our city. And thanks for Amber for participating in that. That was awesome. And to Jeff Bowman as well. It was excellent. On the 5th, I was a guest speaker at the Coachella Valley Realtors Association breakfast. It's kind of interesting. On the 12th, Bill Teague meeting honoring his 67 years of leadership with the Valley Sanitary District starting in 1951. First as an employee and then as the elected board member. Can you imagine 67 years? That was incredible. I can't even imagine it. No comment from you, sir, and 67 years, okay?
You're way past that.
I knew I should have kept quiet. I knew I should have. On the 18th, Cabot's Museum board meeting, and nothing to report there, and that concludes my report.
Thank you. Director Meyerhoff, would you like to go?
Yes. On the 7th, I attended the Building Industry Association Shots in the Dark. General Manager Macy was there. We did talk to a few of the folks there, and it was a very nice time. Then on the 12th, Planning Commission meeting, not a whole lot going on there. I'm sure they'll have more going on now after the first of the year and the election's over. And be looking forward to those meetings later. The Economic Partnership Summit. It was always enjoyable. The, it was, being a former student at the College of the Desert, it was interesting to see how they had their math all laid out and what the students bring back to the community. And it's, there were some things there that kind of, I wasn't too sure about what was going on with that report, but it takes a lifetime to get that $51 for every dollar that you spend on education to get that back. And the students do bring a lot of money to the Coachella Valley. Most of it is grant money and student loan money and parents' money. So it's good that we have the college there. And yes, they do bring a lot of good economic issues to our city. And I really like College of the Desert and the training they give our students here. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Duff, would you like to go?
All right, so as Director Martin had mentioned, on November 2nd, I was honored to be a co-presenter alongside Jeff Bowman of the Desert Water Agency at the Desert Hot Springs Historical Society's Rock House, which Vice President Griffith did an amazing job getting that open. And it's a really great facility. I hope that the city will be using it more and our residents can use it more because it's a really great little building. On the 7th, I attended the CSDA Riverside chapter meeting at the Coachella Valley Mosquito Vector Control in Indio. Jeremy was a great host and he provided an awesome tour. I was itching the rest of the day. Chris Palmer of CSDA was there, as well as Salma, I have Del Ribble, I believe, of the government deals, as well as Dr. Bruce Underwood, the newly elected LAFCO member, and he gave a speech on LAFCO, what it does and what it's supposed to do. I think he's still working on those details as a new member himself, but it was an interesting presentation. On the 12th of November, I attended the CBWD board meeting. Their second meeting of the month was canceled. One thing that I wanted to make mention, they had, like we do, celebrated their employees. They had 8 20-year anniversaries celebrated this month of November and one 35-year anniversary. And then they had 3 retirements at the same time with 53 years of experience leaving their district. This just highlights once again the things the Real Academy is trying to do and the things that Marion and our local outreach is doing in telling our kids that the water world is not only exciting, but it's a great career opportunity and you're needed. The only other thing I wanted to bring notice of was that they had approved their new $5 million reservoir in Palm Desert, and also entered into 2 environmental mitigation plans for North Cathedral City Regional Stormwater Project and the Whitewater River Stormwater Channel Bank Protection Project at Cook Street. As part of these, I had requested from both their member as well as our staff to do what we can to try and make sure that we get some sort of a measuring device at those bridge locations, trying to just keep track of the amount of water that flows whenever it does flow through those channels, I think is important. I don't know if they are feeling it's as important, but I would like to see us continue pushing for that. On the 14th, I attended the CVAG, CC and ES meetings. CVAG or CVCC purchased another 5-acre parcel in the Upper Mission Creek Big Morongo Canyon, which is here in Desert Hot Springs. They also purchased an additional 2 acres on San Jacinto and Santa Rosa Mountains, as well as entered into a memorandum of understanding with CBWD about that exact flood control infrastructure that they are building. And I have reached out to them as well about that water measuring device at both of those locations. Let's see. And then they also, something that we'll potentially see in our backyard, they also got a grant at CVCC for a Modus tower. And these Modus towers are going to be placed throughout the Coachella Valley, and it appears as though there may be 1 or 2 locations in our neck of the woods, and they're going to be tracking migratory birds. And it's going to participate in a actual nationwide and worldwide electronic tracking of these migratory birds. So that was pretty interesting. On the 19th, I also attended the CVEP Economic Summit. DHS was third most growth in the last 20 years, bringing our population to 33,451 people. We also saw a over 100% increase in taxable retail sales, which I found interesting. As a resident, I was trying to identify the new retail sources, but then I remembered, oh, it was for 20 years. So now that all makes sense. But with inflation, there was definite discussion as its effect on the valley as a whole, but specifically to our community, Indio and Coachella. And that is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice President?
Not related to meetings I went to, but as far as the Rock House, I did have a meeting with Jeff Homan and Irene Rodriguez on behalf of the Greater Coachella Valley Chamber of Commerce. They wanted to do a mixer at my workplace. And I actually suggested the Rock House because they want to have tables. So more information will come out, and I do believe that I'm hoping we will participate. So I had a pretty light month, luckily. Attended the Desert Water Agency meeting on November 5th. And that was a very short meeting, which was kind of nice. They talked about a payment processing agreement with Chase, a customer appeal, so we are not the only ones getting hit with those. And then their legislative platform, which was very awesome. And it's nice to see Victoria there. And they talked about AB 1827 as well as 2257, which I do believe will be coming to us with more information and things that we need to do regarding that in the following year. And the only other thing I did actually was go to the CVEP Economic Summit. I was actually kind of disappointed in it. I don't think it was as good as previous years. The guy who talked about data was fantastic, but that whole, whatever you called that thing up with the three people asking questions about stuff, to me was an absolute waste of my time. So it's my commentary. That's all I did.
I will get a refund.
And I just have one to report on, and it's actually the CVEP Economic Summit. I was speaking with the general manager as well that it definitely didn't have the amount of data that it typically did years past. It was always one of my favorite events, but it's different this year. I did like that they included a lot more information about College of the Desert. So that was interesting, but nothing really significant to report. And with that, we'll move on to general manager's report. Item 27. Finance report and public affairs. Do we have both today?
Yes, we do have both today. Our Director of Finance, Arturo Sehal, will go first. Arturo?
Thank you, General Manager Macy, President Sewell, and members of the board. Quick update on Appendix A of your report is the summary financial information. And it's primarily, if you can see, the comparing last month's to this month's is pretty much a mirror of the information presented with the revenues and expenses still behind, and primarily that has to do with reviewing and adjusting some of those items that have not been added. They will be when we present that information at the mid-year budget report. Cash is still at $75 million compared to last year at 55, primarily, again, the grant as part of the collections that we made. And at this point, I'll answer any questions.
Any questions from the board? Director Martin? Director Meyerhoffen? Director Duff?
Just one, in reading your report, could you touch on the budget transfers that you mentioned in the report for us, please?
Those are the budget transfers that are requested by the staff from within the departments. They're their own budget, and so they're requesting transfers to meet expenses as requested and required. And it's basically a process that we do. They do get reviewed, but otherwise they pretty much happen on a regular basis.
I guess I'm specifically looking at the state underpayment penalties and interest one. Is that due to us missing some dates, or?
It is. We found some irregularities, and by what I mean by that is the IRS sent us a letter stating that we submitted some information late. After going back and forth with staff and the IRS, there's no way for us to confirm whether they were late or not. However, they were received. There was during that time frame, there was a transition between the previous accounting manager, and therefore we don't have all the big picture, as you would say, in order to identify what exactly happened. The fees were paid. However, we did submit a request for them to waive them simply because, again, there was no way to identify what happened. We were looking for the confirmation that we do send every single year with those reports. It's nowhere to be found, so that's basically what it is.
No worries. Thank you for that clarification. I haven't seen that on any, so it makes sense that it happened before your time and we're just having to catch up on it. The only other one that did draw my attention was the change of 38,000 from water management to general consulting. Was that for the award of a consulting contract, or was that just an increase in consulting services that were still water management related?
It is the current contract that went to the board this month.
Okay,
And it is basically some of those fees associated with that. You
perfect.
will see some of that information come back at the mid-year for review so that you can see the big picture as to where they all ended up from and where they're being expensed. But yeah, that's primarily what it is for.
I appreciate it. And just so you know, I do read these. And so I appreciate those kind of details whenever we change or have to adjust our budget outside of the normal budgetary timeframes. It's telling us something. And so we need to pay attention. So thank you very much for this report. That's it.
Thank you. Vice President? And I have nothing further. Thank you, Arturo. And the public affairs report?
As Marion's coming up, I do want to, one of the things that I failed to mention in the groundwater protection program update is that because the project is so far along, we will be releasing some of the retainage for the Shea contract. The budget is where it's at right now is fine, but the issue that we're going to have as part of our check writing policy does require just an acknowledgement from the board from that perspective. And really, it's just informing you that we're going to be writing a check that's over, is it $100,000? Yeah, any check over $100,000, we just need to notify the board. So I wanted to make sure we got that on the record so we could write that retainage. So, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon again. Thank you very much. Excuse me. Thank you and good afternoon, everyone. I have a short PowerPoint to share with you today that discusses many of the public affairs activities in the past month, and additional information, as always, is in your packet. As far as notable events, we had several in the past month, including a special awards ceremony that we attended through the National Clay Pipe Institute, where we were awarded the Award of Merit, which you can see here to my left. We also attended the informative CVEP and also Aqua Fall conferences. Both events were hosted here locally in the Coachella Valley and provided valuable information to district leadership. We also held a successful November 20th Water Talk focusing on cybersecurity with expert Aaron Betts from Intellisys. He provided residents with information on how the district is preparing itself in the event of a cyber attack, and we also provided ways that customers can also protect themselves. In addition to this, MSWD was out there in the community helping out and providing water at the holiday cooking decorating event at the DHS Rec Center, the DVBA golf tournament, and on our very own holiday-inspired live stream blood drive. And for those of you who were not able to attend the holiday parade last weekend, I'm very proud to announce that our gingerbread themed float won best overall. This is the fourth year in a row that MSWD's float has taken home some type of honor. We had a very diverse parade committee this year, and it really was a team effort to get the float up and running. Members of the committee took turns pitching in a few minutes here and there whenever they could to bring the float to life. And a special shout out to our driver, Julio Martinez, and all of the employees, their family members, and the board who braved the cold on Saturday to make it a special event. The parade concluded a very busy holiday season of giving for our employees that included a Thanksgiving non-perishable food drive that benefited children at Two Bunch Elementary School and also our live stream blood drive that I mentioned earlier. And then last week at our holiday luncheon, we were honored to hear from Sean Harris. She's the senior partner parent partner with Riverside University Health Systems. And this is the second year in a row that we have partnered with the county in its annual Snowflake gift giving program. Last year, our employees adopted 40 children, and I'm proud to say that employees this year stepped it up, and we met the needs and wishes of 60 children. And looking towards the rest of the month and January, we have several more notable events, including the Rotary and the CV Cans holiday events later this week, along with two important presentations taking place tomorrow. The first is a joint panel discussion with Aqua and the California Public Information Officers Association that talks about recruiting the next generation. I will be providing an overview of our intern program and discussing how we are working to inspire the next generation of water leaders in our community. Later that night, Chad Seidel will be providing a community update on the Chrome 6 and how MSWD is taking a proactive approach in addressing these new regulations. In January, we have several other notable events, including a septic to sewer update at Mission Lakes Country Club on January 22nd, and a Region 9 Aqua Tour and board meeting at our regional plant. I also wanted to highlight an important outreach that we've been doing at the Desert Hot Springs Senior Center. You may have noticed we have already done 2 presentations there at the Senior Center about groundwater protection and water quality. And we also have an additional presentation that we'll be doing on January 14th. Again, talking about water quality here in Desert Hot Springs. They are a very inquisitive group of seniors, and we're very proud to present this and partner with their leadership for these presentations. As was mentioned earlier, MSWD's 25 conservation and groundwater protection calendars are now available. This year's calendar features the artwork of 14 students from our service area. Each student will receive a certificate, gift card, and copies of the calendar as a thank you for their participation. All students who participated will receive a certificate of appreciation and a copy of the calendar as a thank you for their efforts. Starting this week, we'll be providing these free at select locations, including the library, city hall, and other community gathering points. And copies will also be available at our payment center or free by request. Speaking of calendars, this month's CV Water Matters newsletter announces our calendar winners and promotes rebates and conservation kits, especially for those who'd like to make a resolution of conservation in the coming year. In November, we reminded residents to avoid fats, grease, and oil when they were doing their holiday cooking. And we also talked about the value of tap water as the holiday season gets busy. There are many convenient ways customers can pay their MSWD bills. A copy of these newsletters are available with each month's billing statement, or they're also available in our lobby or our website under the news section. And lastly, I wanted to highlight the CV Water Counts is gearing up this year for its 9th course of the Water Counts Academy, designed for community leaders in our Coachella Valley who want to learn about local water resources. It's a comprehensive course that covers the different services and uses of water in the Coachella Valley. Students also learn how local water agencies carefully manage this precious resource. Topics include local water resources, imported water, conservation, long-term water management planning, groundwater management, non-potable and recycled water, water quality, and more. The deadline to apply is January 10th, and it's free and open to all Coachella Valley residents. To sign up, members of the public should visit the CV Water Counts website. And with that, that's the end of my presentation today.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments, Director Duff?
I just wanted to thank you and the committee here at MSWD for the wonderful work you all did again on the float. But I did want to ask a question, and I think it's one that actually was brought up by one of our new council members, Mr. Voss, in a joking way, but I think our public should know. He had asked, wow, this is a great float. Where'd the money come from?
Well, for the most part, most of the lights have all been recycled for several years now, and it's a combination. Some of it's volunteers time, some of it's if we can squeeze in extra time. We do have committee meetings that are during work hours. So I can't say that it's all volunteer, but it's a push and pull of whatever we can do.
Specifically, it's non-ratepayer money. We have several different things that we do here at the district, cell phone towers and things like that, that is not part of our ratepayers, general fund and things of that nature. So yes, it is not part of any ratepayer money. It is things that we have of outside resources and not connected to our rates.
And in addition, lots of blood, sweat, and tears from our lovely community supportive employees, which they really put a smile on my face. And my son just wants to say thank you for letting him make it snow again. It's his favorite part. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice President,
Good job.
Director Martin.
I concur. As a wonderful job. You continue to really do an outstanding job, and for everybody that participated in the parade and other events that happened in the year. Congratulations and job well done.
Director Mayor.
I'm in agreement with everything Buddy's saying, job well done. I just kind of feel that we shouldn't be competing against our own residents in competitions. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you. And I'll just also say thank you to the parade committee, but also the party planning committee. It was a really nice holiday party last week, and was happy to see staff get together, and the camaraderie between staff, I think, has never been better. So thank you so much. Moving on to item 28, district council comments.
Yes, so today we will have two closed session items, two potential cases that are listed on the agenda.
Item 29, director's comments and requests, consists of general comments, requests for future agenda items, and requests for future meetings. Director Martin?
Head with it.
Director Myhaven?
I'd just like to say that this is my completion of my second year here, and it's been very interesting. I don't always get my way and don't always get along with everybody, but at least we're still talking with each other, and maybe one day I'll get my way. But anyways, I hope that the staff and the directors all have a wonderful Christmas. And I hope we have a good new year, and I think we'll move forward as a whole next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Duff?
Thank you. A couple things. I just wanted to thank the staff here for the hard work that you all have put in over the last 2 years of me being a director on this board. I know that sometimes I ask a lot, and I make you guys all do a lot of hard work, but I think that the rewards are evident by the number of awards that we continue getting. I'm so proud of the accounting department and the recent recognition they've received. I'm so proud of all of our employees and the work they do. We've also suffered some losses, employee-wise here, and family members of some employees. And I just want us to take a moment and remember that this time of year, as joyful as it is, it can also come with some sadness, and reach out to those neighbors that maybe seem a little extra quiet, and reach out to your loved ones. And I hope that all of our employees can take this time to appreciate their families and spend that extra time loving on them as much as they can. Happy holidays and a happy new year.
Thank you. Vice President?
Feliz Navidad.
And I'll echo what was said. Just hope all of our staff and customers have a happy holidays and happy new year. And with that, we will go into closed session. Thank you. All right, we're back from closed session. Counselor, can you report out?
There was no reportable action taken in closed session.
Thank you. And with that, we'll see you next year. Meeting is adjourned.